How are we doing, everyone? So choosing the right pond filter can be a very overwhelming thing. You head into a store and you are faced with dozens of boxes that all promise crystal clear water. But the question is, which one is the right one for you? Now, you might be worried about picking up the wrong filter and wasting hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of pounds. And you end up with the same situation you were in before. Green water, blanket weed, murky water where you can't see your fish. And it is one of the most frustrating things to happen in a pond. And it's an easy mistake to make. You might buy a filter that's too weak for your pond. You might buy one that's an absolute nightmare to maintain, or one that's just completely wrong for your style of setup and what you want to achieve with it. But honestly, it really doesn't need to be that difficult. Over the last 18 to 20 years, however long it's been that I have spent working in the aquarium and pond hobby, it's probably one of the biggest questions you get asked when setting up and helping people set up a pond is, what filter do I need? So that's what I want to do in this video, demystify pond filtration. We are going to cover the core things to think about and look at when buying pond filtration. And we'll also cover the three main types of pond filtration available on the market. By the end of this video, you will have the confidence to walk into any store and know exactly what your pond needs and what you are looking for. So first things first, why do you even need a pond filter for your pond? Most people think it is just to make the water look clear, but actually a pond filter does a lot more. Yes, it does keep the water clear, but it is the life support system for your whole entire ecosystem. It's actually pretty simple. Your fish that are in your pond produce waste. This waste is primarily ammonia. Now, ammonia is toxic to fish. Your filter is there to deal with that. Not even to mention the things like decaying plant leaves, uneaten fish food, other wildlife getting in and out of your pond and causing waste. This filter is there to clean all of that up. Now, your filter provides homes for billions and billions of bacteria, and those bacteria are what turn your ammonia, your fish waste, your plant decaying matter, they turn those waste products into less harmful products and less harmful products again. It's a whole, well, called the nitrogen cycle. There's a whole video on the channel. It is sat in front of an aquarium, but the same thing applies for ponds as it does for aquariums. Now, once those bacteria have processed all of this waste and broken it down into its, well, lowest form that it can, it's used as fertilizer for all of your pond plants. That's why this pond stays very, very clear behind me, is because, well, to be honest, I've let it overgrow. It's got filtration on it, but having more pond plants means that all of those nutrients, all of those waste levels can be used up by your plants. And that's probably one question that needs addressing in this video, is when people were buying pond filtration and getting it home, they would often ask, well, do I need to run it all the time? Can I not like switch off at night? And it's a definite no. Filtration works way, way better when you are running it 24/7. All that bacteria in there that is keeping your pond clean and healthy, it's relying on the water flow, on the oxygenation that is coming through that filter. So by turning it off, you are going to stall it. You are probably going to lose most of your bacteria overnight. And then you're going to start the whole cycle again in the morning. And your pond is going to be going through peaks and troughs. And if your pond has livestock in it, goldfish, koi, things like that, it's probably going to spell disaster for them. Okay, so before we start looking at the different types of filtration that you can get, you need to know your pond stats. Now, get this right, and you are honestly 80 to 90% of the way there. You have to know how many litres or gallons, depending on what you work in, is inside your pond. For a square pond, it's very, very easy. It's length times width times depth in meters, and then times it by 1,000, and that will give you your literage. But there are hundreds of calculators out there online, and even if you pop into your local fish store and take the measurements with you, most of the time they will be happy to work it out for you, to talk you through what's going on and what literage or gallonage is in your pond. Remember though, with irregular shapes, it does get trickier. The more curves, the more bends, the more corners, the more shelves you add into your pond, the harder it is to work out an exact literage. But if you can get somewhere close, then you'll be absolutely fine. Some people go to the extreme of like measuring how much water is coming out of their hose pipe when they first fill their pond. So for instance, 10 litres has taken 2 minutes. Oh, my pond's been filling for an hour. That means my pond's however many litres that works out at. The math escapes me. But every single filter on the market will be rated to a certain amount of water volume. That is where this bit of information comes in so important. It's no good just going into a shop, and it was one of the most common things when I was working in the shop. Oh, the pond's from about me to you, and it's about this sort of wide, and I reckon it's maybe up to my knee. The variables in that is so huge. You could make it wrong by 1,000, 2,000 litres, which means then your filter goes from being absolutely spot on and perfect for the job to being very much undersized, and all you are going to have is green water and problems until you buy a bigger filter. Now, these numbers on the boxes that you can probably see on camera are where most beginners get it wrong, because those numbers are the maximum amount of water that filter can do with very little to deal with. No fish or next to no fish, not much waste, not much sunlight. Those numbers are the top whack that they can do. The more fish you have in your pond, especially messy ones like koi, you know, they get huge. Even a fully grown goldfish is fairly large. These are all going to have an impact on what your filter can cope with. There's lots of different rules of thumb, and every single company will normally print on the back of their boxes what their filters can deal with in certain situations. But for a lightly stocked pond, you could be looking 1.5 to 2 times the size of filter needed. So if you've got a 1,000 litre pond, you could be looking for a 2,000 litre filter. When you're going up to bigger, higher stocks, you might even be 2, 3, 4 times the amount of filtration needed. So for a 1,000 litre pond, you might be looking at a 4,000 or 5,000 litre filter minimum. And when you're getting up to the likes of koi and you're having a dedicated filtration system, you could even be looking higher. I've seen 10, 15 times the amount of filtration needed on certain types of pond. That is normally a pond with next to no plants helping you with nutrients, very big fish swimming around, and also in fairly bright sunlight. Remember, every pond is different and what it needs is going to be different. Now, you can't really over-filter a pond in that sense of the word. The bigger filter you get, the easier it's going to be. And when I mentioned about the companies printing it on the back, when you look at the numbers on the back of this box, and there is a lot of information, but the important bit that we are looking at for this section is these down here. Every company does it slightly different. What you've got is when the pond is, well, essentially nothing, no fish load, no anything, it can deal with 3,000 litres maximum. When it's got a light stocking of fish, it all of a sudden halves and can only do 1,500 litres. If you've got a heavy stocking of fish, and this one is koi, they wouldn't recommend it at all. You are going to need something way more efficient. And like I say, fish aren't the only factor. Trees dropping leaves, flowers and seeds in, nature, frogs, all of that sort of thing, the plants in the pond, the amount of sunlight that it's getting, that can all have an impact on what these filters can actually do. So where I just touched upon sunlight in your pond, is your pond going to be in full sunlight all day long? That means you are going to need a bigger, more efficient UV. UV stands for ultraviolet. And inside all of these filters we've got here today is what they call an ultraviolet light that helps kill off algae. So you might be thinking, oh, I've not got that many fish, but actually the pond is in full sunlight all day. So, well, that skews which filter I need. I'm going to need a bigger UV, but I might actually not need that much filtration. And the answer always is get the bigger one, because you're not going to have to worry about it. You're not going to have to clean it as much, and it is going to mean you can sit beside a crystal clear pond and really enjoy it. But you also need to think about where your pond filter is going to go. Do you want the pond filter to be hidden, for instance, so that you don't see much or any of the equipment at all? Do you want your filter to return back into a waterfall like mine behind me? These questions and the answers to these questions all change what sort of model is going to be best for you. So before we get into the main types of filtration, if you could do me a massive favor, and if you are finding this video useful, subscribe, like, comment, all those wonderful YouTube things. It helps this channel and the purposes and educational nature of this channel get out and go further. My whole goal with this channel is for people to enjoy their ponds and their aquariums and have a stress-free, very easy life with it. So if you could hit any of those buttons, it would be much appreciated. So let's have a look at some of the examples of pond filtration. These are the most popular designs that we have on the market at the moment, and there's only 3 of them. So we've got an internal pond filter, we have got an external flow-free filter, and the last one, we have got an external pressure filter. Now, I do need to say a huge thank you to Oaza for sending out all of these pond filters, because when I reached out to them with this idea of making a video that was probably one of the most asked questions when people were building ponds, they were so accommodating and helped me. I wouldn't be able to afford to buy all of these filters to make this video, to educate and help you make the right decision. So huge support from them, and thank you so much. So let's start with the simplest option, which is the in-pond filter. This is the one that most people gravitate towards because honestly, they are one of the cheapest ones on the market. And they also seem small and simple, but they aren't right for every situation. Now, these filters combine everything into one simple package. They generally have a pump to circulate the water, the filters to filter the water, and also a UV clarifier to help you with any algae, green water, things like that. The majority, including the Oaza Filtrel, comes with a fountain head so that you get a nice spray or a nice show of water in your pond. Now, I've sold Oaza pond products for years in the shop, and one thing I like about their in-pond filtration is you might be able to see it. There's a little clear pipe with a clear pipe leading up to the surface, and that is a Venturi system. What that does is it sucks air from the surface and blasts it out at the bottom, creating a plume of bubbles. This is especially helpful during the summer when it's hot and oxygen levels are at their lowest, but it's just a really nice, well thought out addition to this pump. So who are these in-pond filters aimed at? Well, to be honest with you, they are aimed at smaller ponds, maybe beginners just starting out in the pond world. Maybe they've got a few small goldfish, nothing too big and, well, messy, because eventually this small little filter is going to block up. Now, that's not to say that these filters don't have their place in the hobby. They are brilliant for lower stocked ponds. I run several of these style filters on the channels for the last 3 years. You'll see multiple ponds with in-pond filters in them. But as soon as you get more fish and more waste, this is when they will struggle. Now, there are a few pros to a filter like this, obviously. There are quite a few pros to this type of system. One of the biggest ones that people normally go for is the ease of installation. What you find is you get it out the box, you put it together like I am here, and you chuck it in the pond. That is it. It is a very simple install. The other thing is that these filters are obviously completely hidden. They are going to be in the bottom of the pond under the water, and they're not going to be very intrusive as to look at. The other thing that people are drawn to is obviously these are the cheapest style of pond filtration that you can pretty much get on the market. So that initial price point that you see when walking into the store draws a lot of you in. The points that aren't so appealing with these filters is that when you clean them, you've got to drag that whole thing out of the bottom of your pond, which can be very tricky, even though I know that Oaza have spent time reinforcing this fountainhead. People just grab hold of this and pull it out of the pond. You have to be very careful. The other thing that people pull it out by is the electrical cable, which you do not really want to be doing. So that's one thing, is maintaining it can be tricky. Once you've got them out of the pond, they're not that bad to clean, no different to really any other filter on the market. With the Filtrel, you've actually got these leaf ridges, so it holds waste higher up and doesn't allow these grills to block. When you've got a fully flat cage, they can block up quite quickly. But that's a nice little point on this filter. Now, all you do is generally unclip them, and you are normally into all your media. You've got some foams, you've got some biomedia. This is your UV clarifier here, so there's a UV bulb inside there. and that's your pump that draws the water in and circulates it. You give everything a quick squeeze out in old pond water because you don't want these filters to be pristine. You want them to have a little bit of biofilm in there because, well, if you clean everything away, you're going to have no good bacteria. But you give everything a quick swill out in old pond water, put it all back together. It is a very sort of easy maintained filter once you get it out of the pond, albeit a little bit mucky. But in-pond filters do have a limited capacity. There is only so much filter you can put under the water in your pond and safely be able to get it and drag it back out when it's full of water and fish poo. That is one of the main sort of drawbacks with them, is there's only so much you can do and hide under the water in your pond. But in-pond filters do vary greatly. Some of the things to look out for between models is how much media you get inside. You know, is it just a tiny little bit of foam, or is it like this one where you've got a huge amount of foam? Can you take and run an extra pipeline off of them? This one can obviously run the Venturi that blows bubbles around, or you can run a hose tail off of them and run a little sort of small water feature, very small waterfall sort of thing. Does it have flow control valves on it so that you can control the amount of flow going up to the fountain head and the amount of flow coming out of the T-piece here to supply your Venturi or your secondary outlet? All these things have a bearing on how good and how well the filter is going to perform. Obviously, it goes without saying, but it does have an impact on the price. But I'll probably say it several times in this video, buy cheap, buy twice. The amount of times people would buy a tiny little filter that says it filters off the internet and then just doesn't do anything. The other thing actually to look at on the in-pond filters is most of them return the water via a fountain. Now, sometimes you get one fountain head. This one comes with like 3 different fountain heads. So you get like a, I don't know, what would that be? An arching jet, the bell fountain, and in the top of here is your tiered fountain. And they are really easy to clean because they all come apart. Some filters only come with one. Some of them are all sealed units, so you can't actually clean the fountain head out at all. So once you get it blocked up and you get some muck in there, it's an absolute nightmare. You've got to try and blast the hose through it. Whereas with this one, you can just undo this, pull it out, and all of the waste and muck and bits of leaf that might be stuck in there falls out. And it's ready to go again. Such an easy thing to clean. So have a look at all these things if you are interested in an in-pond filter, because the maintenance, the cleanliness, the size of the filter, they are all going to have a bearing on how good this is going to perform. In-pond filters are never going to be really designed for koi. Maybe if you've got a holding facility with some really baby ones, maybe then yes. But for heavily stocked ponds, these filters aren't going to be what you are needing to look at. A few small goldfish in a small outdoor back garden pond, it will do absolutely fine. Again, there are several videos and setups on the channel with us running in-pond filters in, and they are still clear 2 years later, 3 years later. Some of them are being upgraded this year, but still, they are still efficient. So small pond, a few small goldfish, maybe a little nature pond just to keep it clear, perfect. Anything more than that, these are going to struggle. So next up, and it seems a little bit counterintuitive, let's go for the biggest box we have here. Now this is a pressurized filter. On a pressurized filter, you generally have a pump that sits in the bottom of the pond. This, through one of these hose tails, feeds water up to your filter, where it will generally go through a UV clarifier, filter media, and then return back into your pond under pressure. And that is the key thing. This is under pressure. Now you can get a wide range of sizes when it comes to pressurized filters. The filter clear range starts as low as a 5,000. And remember, well, this is a 13,000, I believe. Yeah. Remember that those numbers on the front are going to be maximum amount of water that they are able to do. As soon as you add fish, koi, plants, sunlight, it's all going to drop that number. But pressure filters do have a wide range of sizes available. They have even actually just released a 60 and a 90,000 version of these filters. So that is going up to huge, huge numbers. And the one thing we don't want to forget is our pump. Now, one of the biggest pros to a pressure filter like this is that, well, it's under pressure, as I say. So it can actually push water back uphill. You could have this sat behind a raised pond or even up behind a really tall waterfall, and the water can come out of this, push uphill, over a slope, and then back down into the pond, which makes this style of filter very, very easy to hide. And again, because of that pressurized canister design, you can bury these filters up to the neck, is what I would call it, but it's not really a neck, is it? You just need this top lid on show. So you can bury them right up to this ring that you can see here. You still do need access, because here you can see a metal clip, and that is how you get into the filters. So you still want to be able to get to that bit. You don't want to bury it all the way, because it will make the maintenance that you have to do on it a bit of a nightmare. But that is one pro to them, is that you can easily hide them. Now, another thing that draws people into these filters is the way that you can generally clean them. They normally have like a easy cleaning feature on them, and the Filter Clear is no exception. All you have to do to give this filter a quick clean is switch your pump off, turn this blue valve around to the side. Now that will divert the water out of this secondary nozzle here. You can put a piece of hose on that, run it off to your flower bed, wherever, because in a second, dirty water is going to come back out through there. So then you go and switch your pump back on. That is going to pump all this water out through here. And all you need to do, and it is certainly easier when this is actually running and full of water, is flick the handle up and actually squeeze the foams out. Now, I will take this apart and show you what's going on inside, but that gives your filter a clean. You might need to do it 10 times, you might need to do it 3 times. Just keep an eye on the dirty water coming out. The cool thing, actually, with Oasa is they supply clear outlets. So what you can see is actually see how dirty the water is coming out through there when you're cleaning it and when the water is returning to your pond. Now, once in a while, it is worth actually cleaning out the filters properly, or at least having a look at them and opening it up, because the more you know about these filters, the easier it is to maintain them. Now, if I've just done this right, we should, be able to just lift this up and show you what's going on inside. Now, as you can see, there is a different size in grades of sponge inside here. So you'll catch larger muck, smaller muck, and in theory, the more you can space out your muck across the sponges, the less often you'll have to clean it. If a filter comes with all the same size sponge, well, it's only going to catch that size. The first one's going to catch it all, the second and the third one aren't really going to do anything. So that is one thing to look out for when buying pressure filters. The other thing to look out for is actually how they clean. There are lots and lots of different cleaning handles, as it were, out on the market. Some of these don't actually do a great deal. Some of them might just scrape the outsides. Some of them might just swirl fresh water around the sponges and hope that that does the job. The easiest way that is, well, actually it got explained to me, was when you've got a dish sponge full of soap, how do you clean it out? Well, you squeeze it until the bubbles stop coming out. And that is exactly the same with fish waste in these sponges. You're not just going to scrape the outside of the sponge and make it look clean from the outside, but leave all the bubbles on the inside. So I don't know if I'll be able to do this actually. Well, actually, if I stand up, I can probably do it. You can see how this actually squeezes the sponges completely. So once you've done that a few times and actually squeezed out all the waste, you are going to have cleaned your filter. That's not to say once in a while you just take it apart and give all the filters a good squeeze out properly in a bucket of water and check that they are all clean, because it's really not that hard. Undo the collar, sit the filter or take the filter out, take it all apart, give the sponges a wash, put it all back together, away you go. Now, the pressure filter itself is obviously just part of this kit, because you need something to supply the water up to this filter, and that is where your pump comes in. Now, when it comes to pond pumps, there is a huge difference in the prices, but I promise you, if you look deeper, there's a huge amount of differences when it comes to the quality and the way that they run. The biggest one is obviously energy. I have seen it many a time where someone goes and buys a cheap cellar or sump pump to run their pond, and unfortunately it runs on a gazillion watts an hour. It's not obviously a billion watts an hour, but it is a way higher wattage than this. So the saving that you make initially on buying that cheaper pump is soon outweighed by just, well, running the thing for a year. Now, if you're buying your pressure filter as a kit, this isn't so much of a worry because the company should have put the right size pump with the right size filter. But that is one thing to bear in mind, because if you try and push too much water through it, it's going to pass over the UV too quickly. The UV is going to do nothing because the water is just going over it too quick. You might end up causing the pressure filter to leak. You might, well, who knows? There's loads of different scenarios. So one thing to make sure is always make sure the pump is sized appropriately for the pressure filter. And again, they are solids, or they should be solids handling pumps. This should be able to pump the waste up to the filter. It is no good having a fine gauze on this catching all the muck, because the filter is going to do nothing. That is not the point. We don't want this to be an internal pond filter and then not push all the waste up to there. When people install pond filters on their pond, sometimes they used to come in, I'm cleaning it every day when they first install it. And yeah, that's because this is sucking up all the waste, getting it up to your filter, and your filter is catching it. It's doing what it should do. But give it a week, give it a couple of weeks. Once it's processed, all that waste that is left in your pond from maybe running an inefficient filter or no filter at all, once it's processed all that, you will be able to slow down on cleaning. But these pumps are probably just as important to look at as the filter itself. Make sure it's solid handling, make sure it's got a good wattage compared to all the other ones on the market, make sure it's got a good guarantee. To be fair, we live in a digital age. Go and read some reviews online, have a look at what people are saying about these pumps. Don't just buy something off the shelf. But once you get this in the pond, you attach your hose to here. Biggest hose size possible is the easiest way forward, because it'll be more efficient, it'll pump more water, and away you go. They're as simple as that. They will need cleaning once in a while, but there's no sponges, there's no nothing inside there that needs proper cleaning. It's just taking it apart, cleaning the impeller out, and away you go. Now, whilst obviously you've got a solids handling pump and you've got a bigger filter, so they are certainly a step up in the world when you compare them to an in-pond filter, they're still not really ideal when it comes to really heavy loads. Things like big koi ponds with large, messy fish can still struggle on a pressure filter. Obviously, like I've already mentioned, these go up to 90,000 litres. So there is some big pressure filters out there now, but there are still better options when it comes to big, messy fish like koi. But they certainly have a place in the hobby because they are so easy to clean. A lot of people, especially a lot of older people that struggle to clean out their filters, this makes life a lot easier. And obviously being able to hide it down behind a waterfall or down behind some sort of, I don't know, plants, wall, even on a raised pond where you can tuck it in behind, makes life way easier. Again, you will see videos on my channel of pressure filters being, look, they are brilliant. Do you know what? It's going to take me longer to get all of these back in their boxes than it is to film this entire video. But anyway, you won't have that issue. Last thing, we have got the box filter. So last but by no means least, we have the BioSmart. Now, some people will know these as flow-through filters. Some people will know them as gravity boxes. Other people will know them as just plain box filters. They are one of the, well, essentially workhorses of the pond industry, and different designs of this has been around for years. Now, this filter is in some ways similar to the pressurized filter in the way that you've got a pump that sits down in the bottom of the pond and it feeds water all the way up to your filter box. Now, the key for box filters and the difference and where the difference lies is the fact that the water comes out of the box and returns to your pond via gravity. Now, box filters come in a range of different sizes. This being one of the smaller ones, a 7,000 litre, is perfect for the majority of small, medium garden ponds. Remember, that's 7,000 litres. As soon as you add fish or a lot of sunlight or a lot of waste, it is soon going to become a 3,500 litre or even less, depending on the bioload of your pond. So it is worth bearing in mind. But they come in a huge range of sizes. And if you are looking at some of those bigger ponds, some of those koi ponds, ponds that are massive and have a lot of waste in them, then you can get box filters that have cool little additions. You can have things like a sieve that goes in the top and collects bigger waste. You can have screens that catch waste. You can have big bubbling biomedia chambers. There's loads and loads of different options out there. Majority of the time, for the majority of people that are doing something in their garden, they don't need all of that. 90% of you will be looking at box filters like this one. Now, most of the time when you compare box filters to pressure filters of a similar size, often box filters will have more space for media or a bit more media included inside, just because of the way that they work. Now, also a good box filter, if it starts to block, will actually be able to bypass the water back into your pond and not block up and slow down the flow. And that sounds a little bit bad, that it's going to bypass, but what would you rather have? An in pond that when it starts to block up is going to slow down, a pressurized filter that when it blocks up it's going to start slowing down, or a box filter that when it actually starts to block up it can bypass the water back into your pond, so your flow rate doesn't drop. In theory, your oxygen levels won't drop, but you will need to clean the sponges out so that then the filters can start working efficiently again. Now, one big thing with flow-through filters or box filters that you generally get is you get a lot more oxygenation inside. With this one, the water comes in through the back here, so you'd have a hose tail on here where your piping is going to be linked up. That comes into this, which is a UV clarifier, and then what happens is it drops down into the filter media. With this one, if I lift this UV off, you've got two outlets, so it's going to drop down and it's going to produce a lot of oxygen. Now, oxygenation isn't just a thing that you need to think about for your fish. Yes, brilliant. Your fish do want, obviously, a high amount of oxygen in there, especially during the summer months. But where this is dropping into your filter, where all your good filter bacteria is going to be living, it is going to help them massively too. The more oxygen you've got in your filter, the better. The better the bacteria is going to be doing, the quicker and more efficient they are going to work. So this is a one big pro of box filters, is there is just so much more oxygen for everything to feed off of. Now, maintenance can be a big thing when it comes to box filters, because some of the simpler models on the market don't have anything to help you clean it. Literally, you've got to pull all the sponges out, give them a wash out in old pond water and put them back in. The good thing with models like the BioSmart is they come with a sludge drain on the bottom. So this whole filter is engineered that when the water's coming up through it, you are going to get settlement. So that means in the bottom of this box, you are going to have a layer of mulm. Then when the water rises up through, it comes up through the sponges that are mounted onto these handles. And when it comes to cleaning, make sure it's not running back into your pond, make sure your pump's turned off. But what you can do, and it's easier when it's full of water, is lift up this handle and it actually squeezes the sponge out and pushes all the waste into the bottom, where you can open up your sludge drain and drain all the waste away. And when you want to check the sponges out properly and actually have a look at them, you just unclip the box from the bottom and you can lift the whole thing out, and your sponges, like I say, are mounted on these handles. Very, very easy to clean. And you might be able to see, but the whole bottom of the box is tapered towards the end where the sludge valve is. So all of that waste can slowly be washed away down into your garden, into your flower bed. It's as simple as that. And again, it is well worth having a look at all the different bits and pieces that box filters come with. There is a huge amount of variance from box filter to box filter. Things like the Awazi BioSmart has overflows. So if you go away for a week and your sponges block up, you don't need to worry. The water will overflow up over here and will still return to your pond via the outlet down here. Very, very simple. It's also got, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it that easily, is markers here. And that's actually how blocked up your pond filters are. You've got a 25, a 50 and a 75% marker. It's little things like this that makes your life easier. Not to mention, it comes with a built-in thermometer. So if you're feeding your fish in the winter, you know exactly what temperature your pond's running at, and you can choose the appropriate food. Now, one of the biggest sticking points for people looking into pond filtration when looking at something like this, like a flow-through box, is the fact that the water returns to your pond via gravity. So this outlet that you can see on the front here needs to be higher than the water level in your pond. So it does mean that this is slightly trickier to hide than a pressure filter. But often the payoff relative to size of model is that you get more filtration in a box filter. And again, all the points that I made about pumps when it comes to the pressure filter is exactly the same when it comes to a flow-through filter. This one, being a bit more of a sort of entry-level filter, comes with a slightly simpler pump. Still really good because you've still got the leaf guards on it so that you've got the raised sections and the lower sections, so it should stop any blocking. And it is still a solids handling pump, albeit a little bit smaller because this is a 7,000 and the pressure filter was a 13,000. But all the same points still stand. Have a look at the pumps, have a look at their wattages, how much they can deal with when it comes to solids. There is a huge variable out there. What you might think is cheap and good might actually be cheap and rubbish. Once you start breaking down the numbers, it's surprising how different they are. Flow-through filters, box filters, gravity boxes, whatever name is given to them, they are probably some of the most adaptable pond filtration out there. Everything from a small one like this that will be perfect for your garden pond, all the way up to massive ones with all the bells and whistles on them that will deal with the biggest koi pond. Box filters are some of the most adaptable filters out there. If you know that your fish are ultimately going to be messy, or the final goal of your pond is to have a good amount of goldfish in there, or even some koi, flow-through filters, box filters, whatever you want to call them, is probably going to be the best place to look at. For the size of filter, for the amount of media you get, they often work out better. Yes, there is a trade-off between a pressure filter and one of these where you're going to see this one a little bit. The pressure filter you can hide. But if you were to compare the two, a 60,000 one of these box filters compared to a 60,000 litre pressure filter, you will normally find the box filter will outcompete the pressure filter each time. It's just the way that it works. Yes, it's going to be bigger, but there's obviously going to be more media in there, more workings. It's just going to be a better filter. But it's the thing that you need to make sense of. It's what you need to work out. Do you want something that's going to be on display but will be probably keeping your pond a lot cleaner, or do you want something that's hidden that is going to take a little bit more work and cleaning once in a while? That's why this video is here, hopefully to understand and explain all of these different filters and the pros and cons to each one. All the different types of filtration on the market come in a huge amount of size. Take this one, for instance. These come in anywhere from 7,000 to 36,000 litres. The little internal pond filtrout comes anywhere from 1,500, I think, up to 9,000 litres. The 1,500 doesn't have a Venturi, if I remember rightly from my days of working in the shop. And like I said on the Filter Clear, they have just released one of these that is up to 90,000 litres. So there is a huge, huge range of different sizes, and it is finding the ones and knowing all the reasons why you would pick, well, an in-pond, a flow-through filter, or a pressurized filter. Now, having worked in the hobby for as long as I have, there are a fair few common mistakes that people would make on the regular, which I think is really important to put in this video. The biggest mistake, and probably the first one that should be discussed, is undersizing your filter. Remember, one of the most important things from this video is the number on the box is the biggest number it will deal with. That 20,000 litre filter will soon become a 10,000. And the amount of times in the shop that I was faced with, well, you're just trying to sell me a bigger filter. I promise you, they are not. It is simple. The numbers on the box are rated as the best it will ever do with the best conditions, no fish, no waste, no nothing. Every other number after that, as soon as you add something else, is a lower number. buying and paying for that larger filter at the start will pay you back in the long run way, way, way more than trying to cheap out and buy the smaller one and hope it works. You'll be able to sit beside your pond more, you'll have to maintain the filter less, and the enjoyment level is just there. You won't be going to the shop every couple of weeks and going, oh, I need another green water treatment because my pond's gone green because I didn't buy the big enough filter with the big UV. I bought the smaller one. The amount of people that come back week after week after week and would buy hundreds of pounds worth of pond treatments, but wouldn't spend £100 extra on the pond filter in the start. I promise you, it's not a sales tactic. It doesn't make any difference to me whether you go and buy a £3,000 filter or a £30 filter. But I can promise you from my experiences in the shop, it's what happens. People struggle when they try to buy the smaller filter. Mistake number 2 is probably mismatching your pond filter to your pond pump. I spoke about it quickly earlier, but it's a huge, huge problem. Most pond filtration ranges can be bought as a kit, so the company has designed that filter to work with that pump. It's the best way to buy them if you are looking at a kit. But there has been quite a few times over the years where people would come and buy the filter from us in the store and then go away and buy a cheaper pump online because it was cheaper. That's pretty much what it comes down to. The problem is, again, pumps are different. Some pumps are designed just to sprinkle water around. They're not actually designed to push water uphill into a filter box. And it's only when you get that cheaper pump home and you're like, oh, it actually doesn't push the water uphill. The impeller isn't designed to do that you realise your mistake. The other thing is obviously buying a cheaper pump, like I said earlier, that is designed for cellars. It's like a dirty water pump for dealing with flood water. They are cheap. No, I'm not going to hide it. They're cheap. The problem with them is that they run on thousands of watts of electricity. So by the time you run them, your electricity bill is insane. I've seen it happen time and time again. Not to mention, if that dirty water pump is pumping water too fast over your UV is not going to be doing anything. That green water is going to come back because the water's passing too quickly over the bulb and it's not doing anything. Make sure your pump is rated for the size of your filter. Most filters will tell you, I can take 9,000 litres an hour. I can take 12,000 litres an hour. Then you can match it up accordingly. But be wary of those pitfalls of cheap pumps that seem like a good deal and also cheap pumps that seem like a good deal but are going to burn through electric like there's no tomorrow. And mistake number 3 is over cleaning your filter and media and sponges. A really clean filter doesn't mean it's working well. If you are scrubbing and jet washing your pond media with chlorinated tap water and getting it so that they are sparkling clean like new, there's going to be no bacteria left in there to actually help you and break down the waste. You want to get rid of the solid waste that is within your media. Yeah, you don't want it blocking up, but what you don't want to do is clean it to the point of it being like brand new, because all of that biofilm, all of those bacteria are going to be gone. And that is what is in your pond, breaking down all your waste. So over cleaning your filter is a big, big mistake that a lot of people make. So make sure you have analysed your pond correctly. Make sure you have worked out the literage that is in your pond and be honest with yourself about how many fish you want or how many fish are already living in your pond. All of those answers are going to point you in the right direction to what size pond filter you are going to need. And then pick out the model or the type that is going to best suit what you are doing. Something like the small in-pond filters for a nice little garden feature, small ornamental outdoor pond, something like the flow-through boxes for maybe a bit bigger, a bit more waste and yeah, a bit bigger fish and keeping your pond cleaner. Or if you want to hide things, something like the pressure filter that can be hidden away in a raised pond behind the wall or behind the waterfall. Obviously, there are loads more points and pros and cons to these that we have discussed, but it is well worth thinking about them and working out which one is going to be best for you. By focusing on the needs of your pond instead of the marketing of crystal clear water guaranteed, you can actually work out what system is going to be best for you and what size is going to be the best one for your pond. You can spend more time enjoying your pond, sitting beside it with crystal clear water and happy and healthy fish, rather than fighting with your pond and spending loads of money on treatments and stressing about the state of it. So hopefully this has helped. As always, if you have liked this video, follow along, subscribe, comment, post, all those wonderful subscribey, YouTubey things. And yeah, drop them down in the comments if you've got any other questions, and I'll try my best to answer them. And I'll see you all in the next one.